Hello everybody, we got a fun video today. It's not like my usual videos. This one is not going to be highly edited, but instead, I'm going to be reading over a funny article I found online. It takes itself very seriously, but when I was reading this, I instantly knew I wanted to make a video about this. And the title of the article is, "If a man uses these 10 phrases in a conversation, he sees you as someone he can manipulate." By Elizabeth Chase, from the Global English Editing. And of course, for the main picture, it's a sinister image of this guy. He's trying to manipulate his wife. I mean, look at him. He's obviously a devilish fiend. Look at that guy. And the reason why I want to cover this is because there's so much media out there now. It's not intended to actually help you. It's intended to simply say, you were right, he was wrong. And the problem is, I don't want to sound sexist here or like a woman hater, but especially in female media, there's so much of it that isn't designed to actually help women. It's simply designed to make them feel good and to tell them the things they want to hear. And that is exactly what this article is. And in fact, it's so bad, it's actually really harmful in my opinion. This one, it says, "You're overreacting." This is a classic phrase that manipulative men often use. It's an attempt to make you question your feelings or reactions to situations. If a man tells you that you are overreacting, he is trying to convince you that your emotions are not valid. Remember, no one has a right to dictate how you should feel about anything. Your feelings are yours, they're real, and they're valid. If someone constantly makes you feel as if you're overreacting, that's a big red flag. No. It could be you're overreacting. And I've heard this used plenty of times with both men and women, and they were overreacting. And as we go through this article is going to continue to rehash this garbage about how you have the right to feel the way you want. Your emotions are real, they're valid, and he cannot say otherwise. The second big red flag is, I was joking. Ever been around that guy who made a mean comment and he quickly brushes it off as a joke when you show that you're hurt? It's a common phrase that manipulative men use. They try and hide their disrespect and cruel intentions behind humor. Okay, for this one, it actually isn't that simple because it really depends on the person. There are people who do actually make different types of jokes. And there are some people who do use it to be passive-aggressive. My question would be, does he make those types of jokes towards himself? If he does, well, maybe it's probably just a joke. Number 3, no one else would put up with you. This one hits close to home. Once dated a guy who would always tell me, no one would put up with you. At first, I didn't think much of it. But as time went on, it started to affect my self-esteem. This is a classic manipulation tactic, making you feel that you're lucky to have them and that no one else would tolerate you. Well, guess what? That is a pretty horrible thing to say. But at the same time, if people are saying that to you, maybe you should take a hint. There are plenty of instances where the other person is wrong. They shouldn't have said something. Maybe they said it horribly, but it doesn't mean that their attacks or criticisms are any less valid. And number 4 is, can't you take a hint? This one is funny to me because women often say this towards guys, that he can't take a hint. They either mean this in the way that they're giving out positive hints. They're conveying interest in a guy, but he's unable to pick it up because, well, guys, when it comes to things that are more subtle, they're kind of, well, autistic. You have to be more forward and blunt and make things obvious. Things that are obvious to you, but just basic for them. Which is also why they sometimes can't take a hint when you're saying no, when you're not conveying interest, when you're giving short responses. It's just funny because guys usually don't say this. It's usually women towards men. The next one is, you're too sensitive. This phrase can tug on your heartstrings. It's a manipulator's way to belittle your feelings and make you doubt your emotional responses. If a man is calling you too sensitive, what he's really doing is dismissing your feelings and experiences. However, there is no such thing as too sensitive. Your emotions and feelings are part of who you are, and they're important. You have every right to be upset and angry and hurt or happy. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. That's horrible advice. You know, you do have a right to feel angry, to be angry, to lash out at people. Guess what? You have that right. I can't control you. I'm not your mom, your dad. I can't control anybody in a given relationship. But also, the other person has every right to leave you because they don't tolerate that bullshit. And yes, there is a thing called being too sensitive. And it's funny because this whole article is about how men manipulate women. I tell you, if you want to not be manipulated, you want to become impervious to these things, You have to learn to tolerate your emotions, your feelings, because manipulating a person is to invoke emotion into them. And then we use that emotion to get what we want. That is how you manipulate someone. So if you want to be free from manipulation, learn to tolerate these uncomfortable emotions and not to react, because that's part of being manipulated. If you have insecurities, which people use pretty much interchangeably with being sensitive, if you touch on something that's an insecurity for a person, they are very sensitive, and that is oftentimes used to manipulate people. So if you don't want to be manipulated, you learn to spot those insecurities, learn to see where you're sensitive, and you fix that. And guess what? In general, you don't want to be that person who's very sensitive and insecure. I've been there. It's horrible. You don't want to do that because you will do things you regret with people you actually like later down the road. You'll say and do things that you really regret. And because you're too sensitive, don't be that guy. Don't be that woman. This is the opposite of what you should be doing. You should, for your own sake, become the least sensitive person out there. This whole article is to simply say, your emotions are right. You have the right to feel that way. If he made you angry or unhappy, don't question yourself. You feel that way, so you're right. That's this whole article summed up. And it's horrible advice for anyone who actually takes it seriously. And the next one is, you don't trust me, which I actually do agree with this one. I do think that you have a right to be skeptical of people for quite a while. Really take your time. I'm not against that. The next one is, you always ruin everything. This phrase is a sucker punch to the gut. When a man throws this at you, he shifts all the blame on you. Well, this is one of those things where it's phrased horribly, like the guy is saying this to a woman. He's obviously very angry. There's something going on right there. But it doesn't change the fact that he could be right. He could be actually pointing out a flaw you have. So when people lash out and attack you and criticize you and get angry, you really have to learn to tolerate it so you can actually hear what they're saying to see, hey, does this person actually have a point? It could be that they're conveying the message horribly, and that's wrong of them, but it doesn't change the fact that it could be that they're right, or at least partially right. So you really have to do some introspection right there. Number 8. You're just like your mother. Oh boy, this woman took things very personally with the last relationship, you can tell. This might seem like a harmless statement, but it can be loaded with manipulation. And then it goes on to say that an interesting fact is, according to research, people tend to be more like their parents as they age. Well, yeah, and who knew? An amazing revelation right there. We needed a study to prove that. But remember, being like your parents isn't a bad thing, and no one should use that as an insult. No. There are plenty of horrible parents out there who do horrible things. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to be like them. Again, maybe the message was conveyed poorly, but it doesn't change the fact that the core message could be correct. Again, you need to look inward. And number 9, if you loved me, you would ... Now this, I do agree with. People will use that to manipulate you. I'm not going to argue with that. That one is actually correct. It's honestly one of those phrases that you rarely hear outside of a person trying to manipulate you. It's actually a good phrase to be aware of, in my opinion. Number 10, you're lucky to have me. I think, yeah, I don't think a person, if you actually liked or loved a person, they would say that to you. So yeah, those are some good statements. Be wary of them. I would actually agree with it. But practically everything else, it was bullshit. Don't listen to this. This is nonsense being fed to you in order to make themselves wealthy, by making you feel right about yourself, by making you feel good that you weren't the problem in the relationship. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, just relationships in general. This can be applicable to those too. And a big point about this article was they're trying to validate their emotions, their feelings, and the way they acted as a result of them. No, you should not do that. This article was so bad, it literally encouraged behavior that gets people manipulated. And you're just teaching people to become intolerable to the others around them and very entitled. Being sensitive is like being a man who's covered in physical sores, and any small touch causes agony to him. Now, that's a very unfortunate situation, but can you really be angry at a person who taps you on the shoulder or gives you a hug, who loves you and is trying to be nice to you, but it causes pain? No, you would say, hey, please don't hug me, I love you too, but that hurts me. You would stop right there. And despite feeling those negative emotions, such as pain, such as anger, such as frustration, you should not lash out at the other person because they didn't mean anything by it. And I've personally been there, where I have been the sensitive person and I've lashed out to people. Here's the problem you have. All this article does at the end of the day is says, hey, if you feel hurt, if you feel attacked, if you become angry or unhappy as a result of something that someone does, you should attack them. You should react however you want because your emotions are real. I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, they're real, but they're not always justified. You actually have to stop and examine, hey, did this person actually try to attack me? Did they actually do anything wrong to me? And if the answer is no to both of those things, it could be that you're just sensitive or insecure and you have some actual deep-rooted problem that you need to fix. And that's a you problem, and you're really hurting the people around you because of it. And I've been there. That's the only reason I know this to be the case. And that's why this article is so harmful. You become simply a person who reacts to the way other people make you feel. Not only is that horrible to the people around you, but now you're primed for being manipulated. Learn to remove your insecurities. Learn to not be sensitive. That's how you can protect yourself from manipulation. And that's all. I decided to make this fun, quick video that's unedited because I saw this article, I thought it was hilarious, I wanted to cover it, and also I'm working on some other projects which will be taking a lot of my time. But I made this for you during the meantime, and I thought you would find it funny too. Anyways, take care.